The theme we're connecting with our unit on the Jain faith is economics and religion. The general theories theme for our unit on Jainism is economics. The social sciences have demonstrated countless times how religion impacts the economy, clearly society, personal and mass psychology, really the whole world. So today we might wonder, in fact, why does anyone study Jain faith with only 4 to 5 million people in India, give or take, mostly in the northwest, the Punjab as they call it. So with so few numbers, one might wonder, well, why are we studying Jain faith or Jainism? And what is it? We can first say the name Jaina means following a conqueror, a Jinna. And with very few numbers, nevertheless, I'm going to argue it's as influential, at least, as Judaism for the subsequent Hindu and Buddhist faiths. And I'm also going to say I agree with Jain scholars who will trace the Jain faith back to the Mohenjo-Daro Harappan civilization. And that would be one of the 4 seats of ancient civilizations. Again, with the Yellow River, we have the Indus, and then Tigris-Euphrates, Sumer Babylon, and finally the Nile River. And so we run into the astonishing fact of the Jain faith, perhaps being the purveyors of yoga, the developers of that civilization that's part of their myth. But we're going to look at economics through the lens of the Jain faith relative to the Hindu faith. And an astonishing fact I got, well, from the very reliable Wikipedia. With 0.5% of the Indian population, the Jain peoples pay 24% of India's taxes, an astonishing figure. So how does that come about? First, we want to introduce Karl Marx. Well, there's no doubt much of Karl Marx is relevant today, if many of his economic theories now, well, have been superseded, and we would hope so. But Karl Marx saw religion as an unhealthy presence in unhealthy societies. Many know his quote, "Religion is the opiate of the masses," but many don't go further to quote the rest of that sentence. It is the opiate of the masses. It is the soul of a soulless world. So being the grandson of a rabbi, and, well, frankly, even looking a lot like a rabbi, Karl Marx is influenced, in my humble opinion, clearly by the Israelite prophets, the angry prophets against warmongering, slavery, Amos, Elijah, and the like. And so Karl Marx sees religion as legitimating unequal social structures. I mean, he talks about the unnatural quality of life in the cities and the necessary social stratification, it seems necessary, into kings and lords and knights, and then merchants, farmers, all the way down the pyramid, we can say. And so for Karl Marx, religion provided a pie in the sky when you die, if you like, for the poor peasant. Well, work hard now and give a big chunk of your change to both the king and the church, and then you will go to heaven upon your death. And his view was really very Hebrew prophet-like. They saw God's reign of justice and equality descending on this very earth. It was not an otherworldly heaven for the Jewish people particularly. And so in particular, the focus of Marx was the same as that for Luther and countless of the Protestants as well, the Catholic Church. Especially in the medieval period, we can see the Pope is rather like a new Roman emperor, and the church itself is like the ghost of the now deceased Roman Empire. And so what annoyed Martin Luther, Karl Marx, so many others, was the fact of peasants' hard-earned money going not to feed their families, but to build beautiful cathedrals to embellish the egos of church folk in Rome. I think there can be no doubt about Karl Marx's opinion, and when we look at India, we must face the fact of the caste system. Clearly a small minority of Brahmin priests are at the top of that food chain, then the warrior caste, where we'll see politicians and police and military agents and the like serving in those jobs often, traditionally. Finally the merchants, a third tier, still stand above the farmers, the peasants, the Shudras, and finally the outcasts do all the disgusting menial work left to do in society, while at the same time being shunned by those above and never able to engage in any upward mobility where they could raise their station until maybe the next life, if they do their job in this life well. In my opinion, we look at the numbers, and the vast majority of Indians are Hindus, in spite of India being, one of the largest Muslim nations as well. Nevertheless, I saw in India how it is, life in the caste system. I remember getting my hair cut by someone from the haircutter caste, considered low in Kathmandu. And so he had no machinery. I thought, I'm going to get a bad haircut. But we have to consider he trained since he was a child in that job. And so when I got my hair cut, it was like Edward Scissorhands. And when I walked out of there, I looked better than Clark Gable. A bit like Clark Gable, at least my hair. So we can't say that economic system does not function. It functions very well. If you train as a child all the way up to adulthood, you're probably going to be pretty good at your job. And concomitant, I will say, to this unequal social system established, in my opinion, by those Kurgan tribes people who invaded around 1300-ish BCE, we can clearly see the impact of Karl Marx's basic thought about religion right there in Hinduism. Now, the contrast to Karl Marx is in fact, I'm going to share the alternative views of Max Weber. He wrote Protestantism in the Spirit of Capitalism, and he chronicles how the Protestant rebellion against the Catholic Church, especially with John Calvin, even more than Martin Luther, led to a notion of individual striving, as the church was no longer considered the vehicle to heaven. Rather, one's own efforts and an introspective consciousness, and a conscience based on one's relationship now with the Bible as an authority and a legitimator of society. And so he sees this rise of Calvinism, which we'll cover in subsequent units, as leading directly into, through the Pilgrims, we can't forget they're Calvinist Protestants, right into the modern kind of capitalist economy in America, where there is arguably relatively little concern for the little guy. And instead, America's ethic, based on this kind of view, Max Weber chronicles, is based on the pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and riches, and are a sign of hard work and being the elect or chosen of God himself. Weber saw a job as a calling, as if from God. Your job was your mission in life, as it is for so many Americans today, right? And there's no doubt that Calvinist Protestantism in general, revolutionized the economic structure of old Catholic medieval Europe, making it the dynamic institution through, we can see the Dutch and the British empires, and of course, those lead directly to the rest of the British Empire's colonies, notably the United States of America, but Canada, Australia, and the like. So we can say religion, if we buy Weber's thesis, radically shakes up economies. It is not merely an opiate for the masses, although it is that too. So we applied Karl Marx to Hinduism. I think we can apply Max Weber's views to the Jain faith. The Jain ascetics and sadhus, we can say, wear nothing at all. Literally, they are naked before the universe. And they emphasize non-harming to the point of, not killing root vegetables. Only fruits and nuts for them. However, the average Jain lay person is often, on average, exceptionally wealthy. Many students ask, how can this be, Powell? How can they advocate giving up everything and total detachment from material belongings and all kinds of killing, and yet also be the richest segment of the Indian population. And we can add the most literate, and women as well have a great position in Jain society. How can this be? And I will argue the principle is very similar to that Max Weber recommended. Jainism opposes the caste system, again claiming its lineage back to that Indus Valley civilization. And instead, we see in Jainism and Buddhism the emergence of the striver movement. Individual striving makes for salvation, not the blessings of the Brahmin priests. It is, in fact, sink or swim for the Jain tradition. I had a good friend who was a Jain, and, he enjoyed the good life. Wine, women, and song, if you know what I mean. Well, I asked him, like so many others, but your tradition advocates none of that. Why is this happening? And he said, well, I get annoyed by that question. How many of the Christians in your nation actually give up everything to follow Christ? And he had a point there. That brings me to my small side theory, that religions are powered along by the saints who provide a focus and an example, and then by the rich guys who build the big buildings. But finally, religions don't function without the slackers. Without the slackers, you just don't have the mass millions that we can see affecting the economy and everything. I know from my own YouTube channel, in debates between Jains and Hindus. In fact, I had a Jain scholar spell out from the Vedas themselves the invasion from the Northwest, the Aryan invasion theory. I found it quite convincing because that is their view, that they go back to this ancient culture, again, like Jews in that sense, and also have the reputation of being wealthy. So here we've seen again where the social sciences are real sciences. We can clearly see these economic patterns among various religions around the planet, and we could go further looking at Confucianism and Taoism and the like. But for this unit, we're going to examine, with reference to readings about Weber and Marx, the role the economy plays in India itself.